Margani, how did you first get involved in singing, and how did the gift unfold in your life?
I remember the sweet lyrical cadence of my Amma's voice. Every word I heard seemed a lullaby. But could that really be? Because she perished giving me birth. If the memories I hold are true, they must be from when her womb was my home. I'd not thought of that before, but the memories are so strong. Even now I can hear the musical sound of her voice in the back of my mind. My own singing is something of a desire to bring her music again to life, so that others might hear it, and so its sound might again enter my own ears. Abba and my Amma's sister always seemed to be about business, trading with the Far East, planning to sell here and there, hiring and firing. And most of all, planning on how to increase the business, that more trades, more money, could be made the following year. None of that attracted me. But I did appreciate the fine things that came with it, our beautiful home, the sculptures and mosaics, my sumptuous clothing and jewelry, but more than that, I appreciated the opportunities that came with wealth. I would never have known my greatest friend and confidant, Ravenna, who of course became Shukilat and ultimately Queen of the Nabatu, but the opportunity I most treasured from these early years was the making of music. To give voice to the song floating around inside me was a joy beyond expression. Although Abba ate, drank, and dreamed business, he heard the musical gift that was in me from an early age, and he decided to encourage it. He hired a man named Thalis from Cilicia, greatly reputed as a singer, and who also had a talent for training others in the art. Every day we had a short lesson in the morning, and then a more lengthy one after midday rest. I learned much from him about technique, and he had a daughter, Thea, who was some years older than me, and also a singer. It was through my musical kinship with her that I most developed my art of singing. She had a great and deep heart for singing, that in time coaxed from me my Amma's music. When Thalis had taught me all he could, Abba ended the lessons and they returned to their home in Cilicia. I grieved losing Thea from my life, but it was then that I truly found my own voice, my own song. I began singing at my family's marzayas, and word soon spread about my talent, and by the time I was 17, my music was in great demand for marzayas all across Rakmu. On occasion I travelled as far as Damascus and Palmyra to sing. Shukilat introduced me to the royal court, and I sang twice for King Aretas at the spring Hajj. It was there that he first named me, the song.
Why did Nahor have such an immediate impact on you, and how did that follow you to Basra?
Nahor, son of Garam. I hardly know where to begin. I first met him at one of Abba's marzayas. He tagged along behind the sculptor Arslan. I was talking up one of Abba's guests, and out of the corner of one eye I could see the young man. He seemed hardly more than a boy, studying my face. Most young men I met seemed intent on simply meeting my eyes with theirs, attempting to capture my attention, or letting their eyes roam over my body. But here was this young man studying my face. I didn't know what to think of that. Later, during the marzaya, I took on my persona of the song and performed a Judean love song for the guests. Though the room was somewhat darkened, I kept seeing Nahor in the far corner of the triclinium, his eyes closed. Most of our guests intently watched me as I performed, so I wondered if Nahor was bored and taking the opportunity to nap. But I saw slight movements of his head, his arms and legs, and came to the conclusion that his own imagination was soaring on my expression of the music. As the marzaya ended, I came up behind him in the courtyard and engaged him in conversation. I found he had not a clue that I was the song. He was probably the most naive young man I ever met, but in a delightfully charming way. There seemed not a speck of guile in him, an extremely rare and welcome attribute in a man, and yet there was something of a deep shadow in him that I couldn't quite touch. At that time, the tragic circumstances of his boyhood were unknown to me. My attraction to him compelled me to invite him to a late-night tryst. I thought by night's end he would reveal himself to be just one more lustful young man, full of self-importance and attracted to nothing more than my womanly charms and Abba's money. And then I could simply dispose of him, removing him from my life. But I was wrong. I discovered in Nahor a keen sense of the wonder of life and a sensitivity to my own thoughts and feelings. I was not prepared for that. I felt I was rapidly falling down some deep hole that had no bottom. This is why I left immediately for Basra. If I could not control where my feelings for him were going, the only alternative was to find an escape. But even in Basra, as I busied myself with helping the Queen to begin plans for a new palace there, I could not escape Nahor's fresh young face, or most of all his warm, open heart. I could think of nothing but him. All I could try to do was replace him with another, someone more predictable, more manageable. I asked Shukilat to introduce me to men of the region, respectable men, but I soon tired of them. I then began looking for men on my own, seeking out those who had more of a taste for excitement, those who could make me forget. I began hosting lavish celebrations, inviting those from near and far who, like me, wanted to drown themselves in entertainment. Fine wine, and ultimately each other. In the end, my lavish life ran out of gold. I sold my Amma's silk business and eventually my villa to settle debts, but my revelry had not yet fully run its course and I became more indebted. Finally, I sold myself. I first hired myself out as paid entertainment, a singer, at a brothel outside of Basra on the road to Damascus. I told myself it was honourable employment, nothing to be ashamed of. But before long, I was entertaining clients in a more tangible way. I sat and just spoke with them about their troubles, sometimes holding their hand, looking deep into their eyes. And before a year had passed, I had become a full-fledged prostitute. It all happened so gradually, I couldn't see it. Until one morning, I woke up with 2 men in my bed. It shocked me to know I had fallen so far. I wept for hours, feeling the dark shame. I knew I could never again see my dear friend Shukilat or my Abba. Over the next few years, I was traded off to other brothels, frequently beaten, and finally found myself the merchandise of a slave auction in Madaba.
Margani, what do you most regret about your life?
That seems to me a pointless question, since we can never go back and make different decisions. But I often wonder what it would have been like had I simply yielded to my powerful feelings for Nahor and not tried to escape them. I may have avoided much of the ugliness of my own bad choices, and Nahor may have avoided the dark path he walked. But then, we wouldn't be the people we became, and we may also have missed the glorious rescue of each of our lives, and how the great mercy revealed himself.